Hello and welcome to our channel MarshStream, your public performance broadcast platform. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. You can also donate to our tip jar and support the arts and artists of MarshStream by clicking the link below in the description. Check out our website at themarsh.org for all upcoming live performances. Now enjoy the show.
Our first performer is Linda Joy, and she will be performing Always, Only, and Forever. Are you looking for love? So is Detective Hart, after a number of people, all over 40, reported her missing. As head of the Department of Missing Emotions at the Hope Agency, Hart knows this is the most challenging case of her career. She consults those who know romantic love best: poets, singers, novelists, movie makers, and even a philosopher in order to crack the case. Would you all please give a rousing round of applause for Linda Joy?
Love's gone missing. Been missing for years now. But I'm on the case. Detective Shereen Hart, Chief Investigator for cases of missing emotions here at the Hope Agency. Just to be clear, I'm not searching for platonic love or universal love. No, it's romantic love that's reported missing. Starting in the mid-60s. Oh, at first we got only like one report a month or so. But by 2000, this office was overwhelmed. We closed the case in 2006 after 40 years of intensive investigation leading nowhere. And I went on long sabbatical for personal reasons until the head of the Hope Agency persuaded him to return to head up this newly reopened case. And I did, because it was almost like a little pebble in my shoe, you know? All of those people anguishing over what happened to love. They wanted to know what happened to the love they'd heard in Johnny Mathis songs and Righteous Brothers songs, that they saw in Casablanca and Giant, that they read about in Room with a View or Like Water for Chocolate. That yearning to be desired and to desire someone can't be replaced at all. No, by no amount of volunteer work, pets, or travels. That's why this case is critical. I don't want to let all those people down. Here's what I've got to work with. As you can see, these three large file cabinets here of hard copy missing reports before the digital age. And starting in 1992, we have here on the office computers just as many. The reports came from people from all walks of life, both men and women. Though I must say, a disproportionate number came from people over 60. What's that about? Oh, over here, I have a short list of possible suspects in love's disappearance: consumerism, rationality, realism in arts and literature, therapeutic discourse, you know, that special talk that therapists use that seep into all the culture. And the newest one, online dating, even before COVID. Well, it's a misnomer. I mean, you can't really call scrolling and looking at somebody on a Zoom screen on stage. For that, you need real, live, physical presence, eyeball-to-eyeball contact, so you can feel the buzz. So you can determine if there's that thing called chemistry. Oh, I know, some people say you can't trust chemistry. I believe in it. Now, in here, I've got on this little Hummer 5,000 pages of interviews. When I asked these folks if they were romantics, they squirmed in their seats. Cleared their throats. One man even turned to beet red. Can't say I blame them. You have to be made of pretty strong stuff these days to say that you're a romantic and admit it publicly. Nah, romanticism with its emphasis on feelings was run out of town a long time ago. Rationality has won the day. Or has it? What these folks didn't know was that I had been searching for love just like they had. Only my search led to more questions and answers. For instance, how do we first find out about love? What she's like, what to expect? Does true love stick around? You know, Shakespeare wrote in his Sonnet 116 that love is an ever-fixing mark. Forever. And most of the poets coming after him agreed. But in the 20th century, more and more poets were saying love was fickle. Here today, gone tomorrow. Who do you agree with? And is the emphasis on compatibility missing the point? I mean, is love really about whether we both like to go ice fishing or play tiddlywinks? Or is it a feeling? A strong, passionate attraction that can turn into a mutual, passionate attachment we call love. Just one last question. What happened when we stopped making love and started having sex? When sex became just another form of entertainment, a good workout for our lungs. Just wondering. I'm not a love guru. Well, time to call it a day. I remember the first time I met love. July 14th, 1965. I was barely 16, but starting college in the fall. There he was, in my family's living room, an older man of 20. Well, he and his brother stood up when I entered the room, a sure sign of gentleman, but also that they thought I was a woman. I mean, I was just passing through on my pedal pushers and ponytail to go climb the avocado tree in the backyard where I could look out on the ocean. But somebody stopped me. No. They made the introductions, and our eyes met. Oh, those beautiful eyes. And it was a lock on. You know how, like when the Navy fighter jets are chasing the enemy plane and they lock onto their target? That's how it felt. When he returned to Santa Clara a few weeks later, he wrote a card that said simply, I love you. And I took my pink pen with the rhinestones in it and wrote right back, Dear Drace, I love you too. I had zero experience with men, scant knowledge. My mother's only advice was, you shouldn't kiss a man until you're engaged. And she did mean kiss. But what did she know? born in 1912. She went to Catholic girls' schools, Catholic women's college, and married the only man she ever dated. At my girls' high school, Sister Linus would look up at the ceiling while she said, "Girls, boys put you up on a pedestal, and then they try to drag you down. But you mustn't let them. If you do, they lose all respect for you, and no decent man will ever marry you." Grace said his mom said we had to act like brother and sister until we could get married. And so he used all his self-control to protect my virtue and show his respect. And this was no technical virginity like kids talk about today. All we could do was kiss and hug. No roaming hands, and certainly no getting horizontal. But for a girl who didn't even know how women got pregnant, it was a lot. Oh, how proud I felt to be holding his hand at midnight mass. Protected me, shielded me from the wind on the Coronado Ferry when we went to visit his parents. And treasured when he said one day when I was old enough, he wanted to make me queen of our home. He would be the breadwinner, take care of the finances, the cars, put out the garbage, and go to work in an office every day. And I would bake and sew and iron, love our 5 babies and raise them right. And welcome Grace home every evening with a big kiss. Going to the chapel and we're gonna get married. Going to the chapel. Oh, ooh, 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 ooh. Grace looked at this really little endearments to me in Spanish because he said it was a much better for language for love. Te quiero siempre. Underneath his solitude. And he would write these letters with things like, "I give you my heart, my soul, my everything. There will never be anyone for me but you. When you're married, Angelita, I will always protect and take care of you." Then 3 years after we met, in 1968, Grace enlisted in the Army. More and more troops were being sent to Vietnam, and he felt it was his patriotic duty to go. And hard. He chose the Army in defiance of his father, who was a Navy admiral and could have gotten him a safe post in the Navy. The night before he left, we danced on a friend's patio. We promised to love each other always, fully, and forever, and to get officially engaged when we returned. At first, I wrote letters to Fort Dix and Fort Hayes, Fort Carson, and then to an FPO box. And he would send these letters in which he put these little red felt hearts he had cut out and doused in his cologne. So when I opened the envelope, it was like he was right there. At night, I would go into the dark kitchen to look at the moon, knowing Grace was looking at that same room. And I would put my arms around the refrigerator and lay my head on that cold chunk of metal, pretending it was really Grace's warm shoulder. One day I came home, there was a package. Oh, he had sent other packages before. Carved ivory earrings, and seashells from Vietnam Beach. What did he send this time? I tore it open to find everything I had ever given him. With a letter that said, "Find someone else." It was crazy. I mean, there had been no clue. Nothing. What was going on? You lost that love. I wrote and wrote to Grace and never received a reply. I wanted to fly to Vietnam and beat on his chest and say, no, you can't do this. You love me always and forever, remember? It makes me just feel like crying. I did see Grace again several years later, after my first marriage ended. How do you describe that first moment that you set eyes on someone who you thought was lost to you forever? And he's smiling at you, happy to see you too. We ran along the beach, splashing in the waves, twirling around, acting like crazy kids, holding each other so tight. There was one moment in my entire life that I could have last forever. That would be it. But in the next moment, he blew me away when he said, I never knew why you stopped writing to me. But you sent the package with the letter, and it's all still at my mother's house. I never wrote a letter. I didn't send a package.
No.
Was he, like, blocking it out? Did those years in Vietnam just drop out of his memory? He hadn't said anything about it. By then, I was a single parent, full-time grad student at the University of Utah, working 3 part-time jobs to support my son and myself. Any time I had left over, but with my toddler as he morphed into a 3-year-old. Grace begged me to come to San Diego and marry him immediately. You're the only woman I'll ever love. Drop out of grad school. I'll take care of you. There were other things he said. Didn't quite add up. And I couldn't just take my son and move him into a house with a strange man without them getting to know each other a little first. 5 months. Let's just visit back and forth for 5 months, then get married. It'll just be 5 months. But it took only 3 months to have my heart broken all over again. The call I made at midnight to tell him goodnight. Strangest woman answered the phone. Oh, he's just run out to get us some ice cream. Funny thing was, as the years passed, I forgot everything except those first 3 years before the war changed everything. And at times when I felt lonely and unloved, I created a fantasy of my last day on Earth. I would be taken to ride on the Coronado Ferry, my white hair piled atop my head, the wind whipping in my face as I clung to the railing. And I'd look down the railing and see an old man coming toward me. Something familiar about him, I'd say to myself. And then our eyes would meet. Those beautiful eyes. And it would be a lock-on all over again. And he would take my hand and hold it to his heart. And then it would just drop dead right there on the deck of the Coronado Ferry. Don't shows. Without them, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Woo!
This is a classic joint. We wouldn't make the performers have to make their own props and everything. Wow. My phone turned into a piece of paper. It's amazing how that worked. All right. Hey, how about one more round of applause for Linda? All right. Our next performer is Jeremy Greco in A Big Snap. On March 17, 2020, sound familiar? A lockdown was announced in San Francisco. Jeremy Greco decided to document each day by taking a picture. What he thought would last 30 days instead lasted 365. From these pictures, Jeremy conducted a series of interviews with people from all walks of life, all of whom discussed their year of COVID, Trump, and their hopes for the future without snapping. Now, please welcome Jeremy Greco.
Every register is a yes. I'm ringing up people with tons and tons of food. How's it going today? Alarm forms outside. People keep calling my name. Jeremy, Jeremy, Jeremy. I love these beans. It's the afternoon of March 17, 2020, and the mayor has just announced the city is on lockdown. I feel like I'm the Jimmy Stewart character in It's a Wonderful Life, and everyone is doing a run on the banks. And as I'm ringing people up, I'm putting on a brave face. But while I'm putting on a brave face on the outside, I'm doing everything on the inside in my power not to break down in tears, not to collapse to the floor, not to snap. Broccoli, huh? I have to maintain my professional composure. I don't want to be that guy who freaks out as the world around him is falling apart, piece by piece. And as I'm ringing people up, thanks for stopping in. I'm thinking of all the things I still have to do. I still have to go to my girls' school and get their work because they're going on distance learning. I still have to get my food. I still have to take care of the store. There's so much to do, so much to take care of. Do you need a bag today? And all I can do at that very moment is put on a brave face, ring people up until my shift ends in exactly 1 hour, and wish them a nice day. My name is Steffi Garrett. I'm 49. I live right outside of Harrisburg, PA. Before COVID hits, my life was falling apart. My wife and I are getting divorced. I have the kids half the time. I'm still living in the house my wife and I purchased together. It's almost paid off, but I have to take out a pretty hefty loan to buy her out. Money is tight. I have roommates moving in at the end of the month. I'm working part-time at a bank in Harrisburg, doing building maintenance. It's a beautiful building, 14 stories tall, 4 floors are for lawyers, the rest are for bankers, and it's an amazing place to be in, right? Because there's lots of really nice cars in the parking garage, yet everyone is just fucking miserable, Jeremy. Absolutely fucking miserable. And on this one particular day before I go into work, I'm having a lot of anxiety around my money situation. I have nothing in my bank account. I have a $20 bill in my pocket. That's all I have. I get paid from this job once a month. I have to make it on $20 for 2 weeks. Before I go into work, I check in on this homeless guy I'm friendly with. Jonathan is his name. He's 65 years old. He lives behind the CVS next to a bank. He sleeps underneath the tarp. And he used to be an accountant his whole life, and until one swift moment, he loses his wife and children. Shortly after that, he isn't able to keep it together, and he loses his job. Eventually, he finds himself homeless. We become friends, and he's actually a huge voice of hope for me during my journey through the divorce. So I stopped in to see Jonathan, and he's sick. He has the flu. And I'm thinking to myself, if only I had time, I'd run into the CVS and get him some Gatorade or some sort of medicine, something like that. But I don't have the time. I'm already running late. Then I'm thinking, if only I had 2 $10 bills instead of a 20, I'd give him half of what I had. But this just isn't the case. So I give him my $20 bill so when he's feeling better, he can go into the CVS and get something so it won't get worse. Then I go into work. And when I get there, the phone is ringing off the hook. There's an emergency on the law firm floor. Their lights aren't turning on and they're angry. They're like, how can we do our work if we don't have any lights? So I go up there. And I pass 2 lawyers on the way. I say good morning to them. And they just look at me like I'm the enemy. They don't even respond. I go into the law firm office. I walk over to a wall. I turn on the switch. And all the lights on the floor come on. And I'm thinking to myself, these people are highly trained specialists charging $300 an hour. And they don't even know how to turn on their fucking lights? Like, what does specialization in something do to us as humans? So, I spend the day thinking about that. And also thinking about the fact that I have no money. Then I come home. And I check the mail. And all I have is bills. That's all I have. $396 worth of bills. And I know as soon as I pay those bills off 2 weeks from now, I'm going to have more bills, and my next paycheck is already spent. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to wind up, sleeping behind the CVS underneath the top next to Jonathan. I walk inside my house, and during the day, my ex-wife has come over with her friends and has taken all the furniture. My place is empty. I don't have my kids. I have no money. I just crumpled up on the ground. It is the lowest point in my life. If I would have had a gun at that very moment, I would have used it. Then, all of a sudden, there's a knock on the door. It's my friend, Charles Einstein. He's a writer and public speaker. He's been pretty instrumental in the gift-giving economy. He's written books like Sacred Economics, stuff like that. And he says to me, someone gifted me this today, and you were in my heart when I woke up this morning, and I just wanted to pass this gift on to you. And he hands me this envelope, and then he gives me this real kind of rigid hug and skips away through the neighborhood because Skipping is better than jogging. I open up the envelope, and inside is something like $500. I have a surplus of $4. I've never felt richer before in my entire life. And I think to myself, if I can live with this type of faith and service and something bigger than myself, I'll be taken care of. Whether that's God or the universe or friends. The design is for me to be taken care of. That's how I made it through that time, Jeremy. And that moment is a defining moment in my life. After I get off of work, after I pick up my daughter's school supplies, after we eat dinner, my family and I decide to walk down to the beach. We're lucky because we live a block away from Ocean Beach in San Francisco, the edge of the world. And as we walk down to the beach, the sun is about to set. It's a beautiful, clear evening. The ocean is calm. I hold my youngest daughter's hand. We see our neighbors. We greet each other. And I tell myself, this isn't going to be so bad. I'm with my family. I live in San Francisco. I'm on the beach. This will really slow things down for a month, and in a month's time, this will all be over. And I decide right then and there, for the next 30 days, I'm going to walk down to the beach and take a picture of the sunset as a way to honor each day. I tell this to my wife. Yes, that's a good idea. You should really do that. But you should also know that this lockdown, this virus, it's going to last more than 30 days. We'll be fine, I tell everyone. We'll be fine. And with that, I snap my first picture. My name is Greco and I am 8. My biggest pleasure is that, can it be Joe Biden? Well, that Joe Biden is president because you and Mommy voted for him, and that means he's good. I don't like Trump. You and Mommy didn't vote for him, and that means he's a meanie. I miss. Well, sometimes I miss having my birthday parties at Fubo Park, or having play dates, or going over to someone's house, or my friend Jane has like this Christmas party that we used to go to, but we couldn't go last year because of COVID. And we would sing like songs at the party, and this one time, the last time we went there, Jane says, "Would you like a cookie?" And I chose the biggest cookie. And well, sometimes they would serve hot cocoa too with whipping cream on top. I like that too. And then we would sing like songs, like the Feliz Navidad song, and Jingle Bells, and Jingle Bell Rock, and a whole bunch of other songs too. My favorite song is like, I forget the name, but another song I like is the Feliz Navidad song. Feliz Navidad, Feliz Navidad. Is that it? I forget how it kind of goes. I hope we can do the Christmas party again next year. My name's John L. Jr. and I'm 74. Yeah, 74. My biggest fear? Well, fuck. I don't know. My biggest fear is living with my roommate. She has an assortment of people coming in and out of the house. She doesn't wear a mask or anything like this. And now that I'm not potting down with Mary, I have to spend more time here. And This is so amazing, but I've never used a kitchen here before. I've lived here, what, 20 years? And I've never used a refrigerator here before, but I need to start using a refrigerator now so I don't have to go out and eat at restaurants all the time. Number one, it's too expensive. Number two, it's unhealthy. Number three, I don't want to catch fucking COVID. So I put some food in the refrigerator. I tell my roommate I want the bottom shelf of the refrigerator. She says fine. Second day, she has this whole fucking tray of crab on that bottom shelf. Put my stuff helter-skelter all over the place. I was so pissed off, Jeremy. All these years, I had given her the kitchen because I knew that the biggest fights of all that take place between roommates take place because of the kitchen. Storing food and eating food and looting through this and that. So all my thoughts on that subject came true. And I fucking exploded on her too. Whether we ever talk again, who knows? And I don't really care. I mean, she is such a fucking idiot. That took a lot of guts what she fucking did. I mean, I was just so pissed off. I just left the house whole day too, so she could straighten it out and everything. And when I come home, she's still bowing all over the fucking place. So you know what? Fuck her. I mean, I hope this doesn't cause more tension with my roommate. Previously, she'd be gone during the day. She was working all the time. It was perfect. But now, because of COVID, she's getting this extended unemployment, which is good, so she could at least pay her rent and everything. But she's home all the fucking time. It's a real pain in the ass. So yeah, that's a big change.
Jeremy Greco, everybody. Oh, those COVID stories. Yeah. People staying home when we weren't used to them staying home. Some of us have gone through that. Anyway, this isn't about me and my roommate going through my food in the fridge. I'm not here to complain about that. I'm here to say that we are going to have a third performer tonight. She might have even been on stage right behind me. Oh, geez. Anyway, here it is. Okay. Our final performance tonight features Kiki Monifa in Kiki and Her Famous Friends. Kiki tells more stories with pictures about the famous folks she has met, including Prince, Kevin Costner, Ed Asner, Rita Moreno, and Norman Lear. And now, Kiki Monifa.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. I took off my mask because you're supposed to have your mask on unless you're actively performing. So as I said my first words, I wasn't actively performing, but I appreciate you all being here and being vaccinated. This is also my first time ever performing on stage. And the enthusiasm. And I'm just happy to be out of the house as well, which is good. So my name is Kiki. My pronouns are she and her. I am a cisgendered woman. I am a lesbian. How many of you have heard of lesbians? No? Okay. Cablinasian? Cablinasian, come on. Tiger Woods famously coined the word Cablinasian because he was a combination of Caucasian, Black, and Asian. Cablinasian. I am a lesbian because I am Black and a lesbian. Why use two words when you could have one word that simplifies it? That is me. I coined the word lesbian much like Bill Bellamy, who is a comic and an actor, coined the word booty call. Look it up, Wikipedia. So lesbian is my thing. I'm a lesbian. I am a mother. I am a soon-to-be grandmother, which is why I'm wearing pink, because I'm going to have a granddaughter. Applause for nothing that I did, that my daughter did. And I have a blessed life. I have a wonderful life. And as Artie said, I have a lot of famous, well, I'll use the quotes, friends. Okay. And I am obsessed with celebrity, which is why I have famous friends. I mean, obsessed with celebrity. I have no shame in my game for my love of pop culture and my obsession with celebrity. And as I was preparing this piece, I actually consulted with someone famous who has performed on this stage, Margaret Gomez. And she asked me why I was obsessed with celebrity, which I never thought about. But in talking to Margaret and preparing for this, I realized I became obsessed with celebrity when at the age of 19, I came out to my mother, and my mother totally rejected me, did not speak to me for 20 years consecutively. We later did reunite, but 20 years, she was so upset at my coming out that she didn't speak to me. I then actively sought mother figures. The two mother figures that I sought out were the beginning of my celebrity obsession, and these two mother figures were famous people, and they were writers, which I aspired to be. One, Nikki Giovanni. Yeah, great mother figure, great role model, great person to aspire to. The other, Lillian Hellman, also another great writer. Now, in my mind, both of them were lesbians. Now, I realize Lillian Hellman was not a lesbian, even though she wrote a play about lesbians as well. But I admired these women. I considered them my mothers, and they began my obsession with celebrity. I followed their every move to the extent that I can. Okay, this is, of course, I'm a baby boomer. So this is pre-internet. So basically television, there were only 4 stations then when I was growing up. The big 3 and PBS. But I followed them as much as I could. I read voraciously about them. Nikki Giovanni was in Jet magazine and Ebony magazine. I saw images of Lillian Hellman and Dashiell Hammett, who she was going out with. I thought of them as mother figures, but also independent women who were writers, who were artists. I think at the time they both smoked cigarettes. I didn't smoke, but I wanted to smoke to be cool like them. I wanted to drink bourbon neat in a glass as they did, but they began my celebrity obsession. Now, I did have encounters with celebrities before then, and I'm looking at the audience, and some of you may know these people. Pat Boone? There we go, thank you. You are my people. I was going to say, if you didn't know Pat Boone, maybe you know You Light Up My Life, his daughter, Debbie Boone. But I met Pat Boone when I was about 13 years old, and I wasn't really obsessed with celebrity at that time. The other people that I met who were famous before my obsession, I met in concert, Jose Feliciano in concert, and then I went to my second, that was my first concert ever. My second concert was Mac Davis, and opening for Mac Davis were Captain Anthony. Oh. Yeah, so that was great. But Nikki, Lillian, they were my rocks, they were my obsession. So I was about 19 years old, and I actually wrote in my journal at that time. I am a writer. At that time, I was not a published writer, but I wrote in my journal at the time that I wanted to be Nikki Giovanni. I wanted to be Lillian Hellman. I wanted to be that strong artist, that strong woman that bourbon drinking, cigarette smoking person that was so independent. Fortunately, I never learned to smoke, but did learn to write and did get published as a writer. So that was at age 19, and they were my main obsessions. Now, let's skip forward to, I'm 40 years old. I have the best job in the world. I am working at a local station here in San Francisco, CBS owned and operated station, KPIX. Some of you may know of it. And I'm the director of communications, which basically means that I do publicity. Now, CBS had television shows, entertainment shows. They did news as well. But I'm like, this is going to do immense value to my obsession with famous people. So here's the good news, that literally my job going to Television Critics Association Awards press conferences was that literally I would see every person who was on a CBS show, or then it was first UPN, now it's CW show. The entire cast and crew in one fell swoop. I was in heaven. The entire cast and crew of The Big Bang Theory when it first started. You know, just incredible. It was like I was dumbfounded and overwhelmed with celebrity. I remember the first time I went to one of these conventions and I started staring at a guy. Now, here's the other good thing. Everyone had name tags on. And not just, you know, Shamils and Shamals like me, but everyone had name tags on. So I'm staring at this guy and I think, I know him. This guy looks at me and he sees me staring like kind of open mouth at him. And he comes up and introduces himself to me. And he says, hello, darling. My name is Jerry. And I, in my mind, is like, are you friggin' kidding me? You are Jerry Stiller. And standing right next to you. And he said, have you met my wife, Ann Mirror? I'm like, no, but I'm plotting because these are big celebrity things. At the same conference, the entire cast of The Girlfriends, which was first on UPN and then CW, and I considered that my 6 degrees of separation from Diana Ross, because her daughter Tracy Ellis Ross was in that show. And I had many more encounters with her in terms of press things, but just a myriad of people that I was able to deal with in the celebrity obsession. One of my favorites was Linda Carter, Wonder Woman. Now, as a lesbian, I'm not normally into white women, but Linda Carter is a beautiful white woman. And I was able to see, and had beautiful blue eyes. I was able to meet Linda Carter. Actually, she was one of the people who I also produced a television show at the station. She was one of the people that I brought in because anytime a famous person was in town doing whatever, I would book them. My other big obsession, this is back to old time CBS, was the Mary Tyler Moore Show. Completely obsessed with the Mary Tyler Moore Show. So I decided while I was working at the station that what I should do is book every single major cast member of the Mary Tyler Moore Show. Good goal. Didn't make that goal. I booked 2. Georgette, unfortunately, did not appear on the show that I booked because she was in town doing a play and she had laryngitis. So that was a fail. But my big win, Ed Asner. I booked Ed Asner, had him on the show, and was just talking to him, was trying to not stumble over myself. And I just said, Mr. Asner, I am a huge Mary Tyler Moore fan and a huge Lou Grant fan. I know every single thing about the Mary Tyler Moore Show. Ed Asner, aka Lou Grant, looked at me and he said, kid, you don't know anything. You don't know anything about the Mary Tyler Moore Show. And I said, Mr. Asner, quiz me. He said, what was Chuckles the Clown's epitaph?
Wow.
I said, easy. A little song, a little dance, a little seltzer down your pants.
Yeah.
He was blown away. He was blown away. The only other thing that I did with my Mary Tyler Moore obsession is we cut forward to 2014. I had the opportunity to go to St. Paul, Minnesota. It was a convention. It was the National Association of Black Journalists convention. I wrote a piece and I talked about the 10 things that I wanted to do while in Minnesota, while at this convention. Now, the number one thing that I said I wanted to do, and I said, now I'm going to the National Association of Black Journalists convention. So the number one thing that I wanted to do, I said, is it wrong that the number one person I want to see at the National Association of Black Journalists convention is neither a journalist nor black? Kevin Costner was there, and he was debuting a movie called Black and White with Octavia Spencer. So I'm like, I am going to meet Kevin Costner there. Big celebrity coup. The other thing that I said I was going to do was go to Minneapolis, and there was a statue of Mary Tyler Moore. I'm like, okay, I didn't book Mary Tyler Moore on my show, but at least I can visit her statue. Okay, reasonable. The third thing that I said I was going to do while there, and this, you know, the statue's not a real famous person, but my obsession with Mary Tyler Moore, was that I wanted to meet Prince. How can you go to Minneapolis without meeting Prince? Well, of course, I knew that meeting Prince was ridiculous. I thought, okay, Mary Tyler Moore statue, I'm going to see that. I get there, the statue is being renovated.
No.
It's not there.
No.
So I don't see this. Okay. I do meet Kevin Costner, go to the movie screening, sit in the front row, eyeball to eyeball. I'm waiting for him to finish, and he said he allowed selfies. I jump up, I embrace him, I try not to scare him. I throw my arm around him and I say, Kevin, you know you got it going on when the lesbians go. Smile. Cap the picture. And then, amazingly, the president of the National Black Journalists Association makes an announcement and says, ladies and gentlemen, Prince has invited us to his home.
What?
For a dance party.
No. No.
And I'm like, I'm going to meet Prince. No guarantee that Prince himself will be there, but we're going to be in Prince's home. You couldn't have you couldn't have your cell phones, you couldn't have any cameras. You also could not have pencil or paper. These were Prince's rules, whether he was going to be there or not. Prince was there. We got there about 8 o'clock, and I heard that he comes to these parties really late. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, way past my bedtime. Felt the energy shift. I did not get to touch him, but I was 6 feet away from Prince.
Wow.
The ultimate fantasy of his time. So thank you. I am filled with gratitude that you allowed me to share a few of my memories of my famous friends. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, wow. three wonderful performances and three wonderful performers tonight. So, well, Kiki's on stage, so we can't ask her to go back and come back.
You could.
Okay, Kiki, go off stage so you can all three come back on together. How's that?
That's good. You can ask anything, Artie.
All right. Well, hopefully the audience will have questions to ask. Let's have all three performers back on stage. So, wow, three wonderful, very different performances. So, anybody here in our powerful but small audience that has a question for anybody on stage about something you were curious about in their performance, something you might like to know about why they decided to write and perform this show? Any of you have questions you'd like to ask? Please, go for it.
So Kiki,
Yes.
I want to make one short statement, but I also want to ask you a question. So are you still super obsessed? That's still your person?
Absolutely.
100%. And now do you have any goals for people that you want to meet now that COVID is lifting, hopefully, probably?
You know, my goal is I want people to think that I'm famous and to meet me. But
There it is. There it is. Well, and now that said, the short thing I wanted to mention
Yes.
was when you said anybody ever heard the term lesbian, and I literally raised my hand like, oh, I know.
Oh, you know.
Well, you know, it's funny because I was thinking, I was like, I wasn't going to raise it because I was like, but no, I know, I read that term, and I thought to myself, I read it in her bio on the Marsh.
Thank you.
But it's a good word, it's a strong word. I'm a person of the word, and it's a great word. But I do want to ask you about your next sort of goal. So right on.
Capital B for lesbian. You know what? I haven't really thought. I mean, I think I sexualize. So if Celine Dion is performing at the Oakland Coliseum on April 3rd, which is my 65th birthday, so that would be the goal.
Yes, indeed.
You know, maybe a one-on-one concert, Celine. Celine is a lesbian. That's a nice ring, huh?
Very nice. Indeed.
That's your next show.
Thank you. Thank you, Artie.
Yeah, go for it.
And I did want to ask about the COVID characters. Yes, and are those from true sketches of people that you know? I didn't hear that in the introduction. I wasn't sure, and I was just curious because it's such a heavy lift during this last 18 months or so for many of us, with many people around us. I'm just curious because I enjoyed those sketches.
Yeah, I came up with an interview. I interviewed everyone by Zoom, so I conducted 14 interviews with people throughout the country, and the world actually. So.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
Did you interview them with a specific idea that you were going to turn them into characters in a piece?
Yeah, I originally called it the Future Project because I wanted to figure out after this year how people would kind of live and what if they had hope for the future, and that was my last question that I asked of everyone. So I had a list of questions I asked everyone, and I was just trying to get a whole wide range of people. One of the people I interviewed was the head of the Republican Party of San Francisco, which comes later. But yeah, that's how it started. I wanted to see how people survived and if they had hope for the future after this year.
And how did you get these people? How did you advertise them first?
No, some people I knew, but I just didn't want it to be a bunch of liberal people in San Francisco. So I have Southern relatives, so I started hitting those people up. With Dennis Johnson, I sent a very kind of flattering email saying, hey, I would love to interview you. This is what I'm doing. This is who I am, and I'm here to listen. And he was the most interesting person because he was the only person who wouldn't turn on his Zoom screen.
Oh.
So, and I mentioned that to him, but we had a great conversation. I didn't agree with anything he said, and but I was just listening to him, and it went pretty well. So, that was.
So you targeted some people.
Some people, and you know, I interviewed someone in Ireland, the former Swan advice columnist Kerry Tennis, who was in Italy, and he had COVID. A few people I interviewed actually had COVID. So I wanted to kind of mend our journeys with the photos I took all year long.
So when you do your project eventually, will you show some of the photos?
Yeah.
Okay. Linda, I just wanted to make a comment. I loved your story. I loved it. I think you need to project a little more. It was quiet sometimes. I was like, I think I'm hearing what you're doing, especially when you sang. Sometimes it was very quiet, and your voice is so lovely, and the songs are so appropriate. But it was like I wanted to hear it just a little louder.
Okay, thank you for that feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one thing about people seeing just this one little segment, rather than the whole 35 minutes, is because it starts out and it sounds like I have this, I don't know, idealistic experience, and you know, but I'm pretty fortunate that I lived in Encinitas and didn't go to school there, but I come from a very strange background. And first of all, I'm almost 73, so I come from a different generation and from this heavily religious background. And yet, in the whole, when you see the whole piece, you see me go through these very practical marriages, you know, very, very pragmatic, which ended up horribly.
Oh.
And got divorced, and got divorced, and got divorced. And I finally realized, no, I'm doing this all wrong, you know. And that's sort of part of the message. When I say at the beginning, I believe in chemistry, is because I didn't use chemistry when I got married. 3 times in a row. No, you know, they were acceptable. They loved my son, or one of them did. And so there's this whole progression of what happens in my last affair was a chemistry.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do think that was a really good critique, because I really enjoyed your piece. There were a few times though when it was a little hard to hear, and one time in particular that comes to mind is when your boyfriend is speaking to you in Spanish. And that's, to me, that was such a powerful part of that part of your story. So I do think that was a good critique for you. And then I wanted to ask you, although you may have just answered it, whether this was a true experience of yours, you know, walking into that room at your home and your pedal pushers, and how I thought that was I enjoyed the story, and I just wondered if that is true.
Yeah, that's exactly how it happened.
Yeah, that's nice.
Totally unforeseen.
Yeah, maybe that's what makes it a powerful story, you know, because it comes from truth. But anyway, I enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's all true.
Yeah. Then if I could just ask one more question, but of Kiki. You said this was your first on stage, is that what you said?
That is
So
correct.
how'd you get here? Like, you know, you're almost 65. How did it happen?
Well, it happened because of COVID. I did perform on Zoom at the Marsh during COVID. I performed twice there. And then Alexa sent me a note and said, would you like to perform in person on stage? And before that I could think about it, I said yes. And then, of course, then I got scared.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I never saw myself as a performer.
That's what I was kind of getting at. So
Yes.
this time's on Zoom. I mean, you are being a performer though, and I was just
Somehow that didn't translate.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I can see
to
that.
me, and it's also, you know, in this world of COVID, being on Zoom is different than being on a live stage with an audience as well, because you don't get, I mean, on Zoom, well, one, I was sitting, and I didn't get the energy from the audience because everybody has to be on mute. But in my mind, before that, I did fashion myself as a performer. But you know, I would never admit it. I mean, but I look at people and I would admire people who did one-woman shows, and I admire other stand-up comics, and you know, thought that I could do that, but this is literally my first time.
You have a presence,
Yeah,
such a
great
presence. It's really wonderful.
And I think even if people don't know Lillian Hellman, for example, I'm your Jen, so I know these people. The way you describe her, you know, the verb in need and these types of little characteristics, I don't know that people need to know Lillian Hellman, but they're getting the idea. So I think you did a really nice job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was super nice.
Yeah, all three of you guys. It's great.
I just wanted to ask you too, Kiki, so is yours scripted, or are you sort of ad-libbing, or?
No, I scripted it. I did not print it out. You know, like my colleagues did. I felt bad about that, but I did script it. I did do some editing because when I timed it before on my practicing on my own, and you know, I had a couple unfortunate practices in front of my children that did not go well. And I timed it, so I knew the time constraints. But yes, it was. Although, you know, within that there was room for ad-libs. You know, I knew the progression. I knew how I wanted to start it. I knew key things. You know, I didn't cover some things. You know, during the editing, I didn't tell the Rita Moreno story or the Norma Miller story, and there are, you know, tons more to tell.
And,
Come back next Monday.
Yeah. And then all three of you, are you guys like in the David Ford classes, or have you taken those classes before?
Yeah, when I first came to the Bay Area, when I decided that I wanted to do solo, I mean, I've been storytelling in different places I've lived. But I came here specifically to take a class at the Marsh. So I took David Ford's class for 5 times in a row. And then I also worked with him when the Marsh Commission needed to do a piece for their festival. I forget what the name of it was.
Oh yeah, like a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Well, oh, sorry, I was just gonna say, did you have another question, Robin?
I just wondered if.
Yeah, I was just gonna add on, just to go down the line, whether it was how did you end up on the stage, right? So, Linda, for you, you'd like to tell stories, and you took these classes with David Ford. Jeremy, how did you end up here?
Well, I've always acted, but when I turned, I think in my late 30s, I developed a piece, and I started with David Ford, and I took 3 or 4 of his classes, and then I've been working primarily with Mark Kendler, who's my director, and he's also a solo performer. He does great work, and I work with Jill Weiss on a lot of character work too. So, yeah, but David Ford was definitely the seed that helped me, and you know, he gave me some talking to. It's like, come on, get out of your shell. So it was a great start.
Hey, can I just probe a little bit on that David Ford come out of your shell? I mean, for people who don't know him, I mean, he's directed many of the, so many of the hit shows at this theater, and so many shows that aren't hit shows, but that have allowed people to do what people are doing tonight. But, I mean, I took a class with him once, and one of the things that I noticed was that people came into the classes oftentimes thinking they knew the story that they wanted to tell, or that they had to tell. And they'd start talking about something, and then they would mention something and sort of go past it. And at the end, David would say, that moment that you talked about, I'll just make it up, that moment when you looked at your brother and then walked away, what was going on then, right? He pushes and pokes, right? So, and to get people to sort of go inside moments that maybe are more important than they realize, which are authentic and real, is that what he was getting at with you in terms of coming out of your shell? Did you feel like there was something deeper that you maybe were wanting to come out but you weren't going there, or what did you mean by that?
Well, I came in with a script already prepared and an idea, so that was fine. It was just allowing myself, I mean, when you're up here by yourself acting all the parts and being in front of classmates, and I'm a shy person anyway, but he was like, trust yourself. It's like, you're not committing to the work, it's there, so you just trust yourself. So I wasn't trusting myself, so that's kind of where I went to get out of the show.
Yeah.
I took no classes with David. It sounds like I should take classes with David. I did take a class during the pandemic with Karen Williams, who is a lesbian comic, the first openly lesbian comic in the United States. And at the end of that time, she allowed us to do a 5 to 7 minute bit via Zoom. I took that class. When I was 19, many, many years ago, I took a 1-week stand-up comic class, but it was really more about how to use the microphone. But I am intrigued by classes, and I am intrigued by theater, and I'm intrigued by workshopping. And I will say that now this is my 3rd Marsh performance, and I've done 3 different pieces, but it's allowed me to workshop it and to get critiques from people as well.
And I do want to add, I also worked with Mark Kenwood, and she's excellent, absolutely. But I also have my director, Rebecca Fisher, who I think, doesn't sometimes get mentioned as much. She has less experience, of course, with David Ford and Mark. But as a woman, I wanted to try seeing how a woman director would react to some of the stuff. And Rebecca is just really fabulous. She has a great sense of humor, and she also just is so insightful. She was zero in on what the problem was, and after we get through Zooming, I give it 24 hours, and I think, oh, that's what she was trying to get me to think of. Yeah, okay. So I'm really fortunate to be able to work with her too.
And was it easier to sort of focus on this sort of relationship stuff because we're working with a woman? Did that make a difference?
Absolutely, because in fact I started working with Mark, but then I was getting into a lot of sex stuff, and I just felt, I don't know, I just felt, 1, more comfortable with the woman, but 2, the woman might, sort of identify more with me when I was talking about it. So, yeah, ordinarily I wouldn't say that because I've always preferred male directors, but then this came up and it just seemed like it was joyful.
And also Wayne Harris, who works out of the Marsh, Mark Kenwood, and Rebecca Fisher, just did a fabulous project called the Formerly Incarcerated People's Project, where it was people that are formerly incarcerated, and it was their stories, and they just had a small festival with it. And they do all 3 of them do a lot of interesting work, and Rebecca also does the Tell It on Tuesday with Bridget, and I forget her last name, unfortunately.
Just since we have, I don't know if anybody remembers back to, oh my God, 2006 or something. Rebecca, she had a horrible tragedy happen in her life at a young age, the murder of her mother and the death of her brother. She turned that into a show, and it was amazing. They were very, very powerful. I mean, it dealt with violence, it dealt with racial issues because she grew up in the South. Anyway, that was my first time seeing her, and it just blew me away. You know, I mean, it was, anyway, I just thought I mean, that's the kind of stuff, right, that you see at this theater. It was what we fall in love with it. Well, I know people are going to want to go. Any last questions here, and from anybody? Well, let me just go down the row here and say, beyond people coming back and seeing you here, is there a internet or intra-atmospheric way that people can find out anything about you and your work? We'll start with you, Kiki.
Yes. You can find about me and my work on, I have a couple of blogs and websites. I have kikipost.com, I have blackhistoryeveryday.com are my websites, and I have a mailing list, authory.com/Kiki, that has everything that I have written that has been published on the internet, and I also write opinion editorials as well.
And I have a website, jeremygreco.com.
And I don't have any website or anything. I'm terribly adverse to, I'm just no good at self-publicity, which is my biggest drawback. I don't let people know about myself. I have an academic background, but I just, even when I was in academia, I didn't want to put a website on the university website. I don't know. It's something that I hope I need to work on. But then on the other hand, I think, well, if I ever do anything really spectacular, I'll let people know about it. I haven't done it yet.
Well, you don't have to. I didn't put you on the spot, but I did want to give you all a chance to, let people know.
I'll post pictures on kikipost.com tonight. Yes, some really good pictures.
Nice.
All right, so the
Thank
three
you, guys,
of you will be
so
back in 2 weeks, right?
Great audience.
Next
One
week.
Oh,
Yeah, next week.
oh,
The 8th.
Because there's 5
that's,
Mondays.
yeah, that's right. I'm so used to like every other.
Yeah.
Got it. Well,
Thank you,
anyway.
audience.